Hello mga investees at mga convincers. Saang mang panig ng mundo kayo naroon ngayon, sana ay nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan. Nakikita nyo po ngayon, ako'y nasa hotel, no? I think baka wala pa po itong isang star na hotel. So I'm currently in Agusan del Sur here in Trento, at ako po ay nag-field work at kinausap natin ang iba't ibang mga local government units for our socialized housing project. Kaya nako, very excited ako na ikwento itong mga at ibalita ang mga ito sa inyo sa mga susunod na live stream natin. Pero syempre, alam po natin na naudlot ang ating interview with one of the vice presidential candidate, si Professor Walden Bello, and I think he's already out of quarantine at ready na siyang makipagkwentuhan sa atin at malakas na ang kanyang internet connection. So without further ado, let's all welcome back si Professor Walden Bello. Ayan. Hello sir ulit. How are you?
Yes, Vince, I'm okay. Thank you very much again for inviting me to the show. And I'm pretty sure na maigi ang internet natin ngayon. Wala na ako sa quarantine eh. At alam mo naman.
Yeah. So baka ako naman po yung pero mukhang strong pa naman ang aking internet connection. So anyway, good. Professor, welcome to the real world. Out of quarantine na kayo. And you're running for the post as a vice president. Linawin nga po natin, Professor, no? Ano nga ba yung role ng isang vice president?
Unang-una, yung layunin ng ating saligang batas yung vice president would be somebody who would take over the presidency if the president is in different ways incapacitated. No? Pag hindi niya magawa yung trabaho niya, lalong-lalo na kung siya ay namatay o nagkaroon ng malubhang sakit. Okay. So, yun yung one and only specification ng Constitution in terms of yung essential role ng Vice President. No?
Right.
So, siyempre naman, depende sa Presidente. Maaari naman dagdagan yung mga functions ng Vice President. No? Pero nasa sa Presidente yun, yung decision.
So prerogative ng president kung ano yung bibigay na posisyon. So kaya pala sinasabi ng iba na forgive me for the term, pero parang spare tire ang vice president. Yun lang ang kanyang role. Pero Professor, pag kayo po ay manalo bilang vice president, ano po ang gusto ninyong i-offer ng mananalong presidente sa inyo as a cabinet post, no, na tingin nyo you would be really functional and competent to this cabinet post?
Magandang tanong yan, Vince, and natanong na rin ito sa akin ng iba-ibang mga interviewer, at yung sagot ko is yung Secretary of Finance.
Oh, okay.
And yun ang kailangan nating tutukan mismo, kasi sa view ko, probably ito yung pinaka-importanteng cabinet position. No? Kasi marami talagang consequences sa atin, no? Sa ating lipunan, yung mga desisyon na kinukuha ng Department of Finance. No?
Okay.
So, kasi sa tingin ng marami, yung unang-una, yung finance is something complicated raw, no?
Mm. Mm.
Um, kaya raw ang dapat naroroon ay isang teknokrata. Alam mo naman yung sinasabi ng mga tao na nakakaintindi raw ng economics, no? At
Oo.
pero sa tingin ko, yung Department of Finance ay kailangan talagang palitan yung mga naging patakaran ng ating Department of Finance kasi marami sa mga policies na umiral sa mga nakaraang 4 na dekada ay mga policies na talagang nakakapinsala sa
Correct.
ating bayan, sa ating ekonomiya, no?
Oo.
Kaya ang gusto kong gawin gusto kong pumasok sa Department of Finance as the Secretary of Finance para makorek itong
Correct.
mga policies na yon at gawin yung departamento isang suporta, hindi isang hadlang sa pagtataas ng Pilipinas.
Ayan. Ako, very interesting po, no, kasi ako mismo ay we provide we call social microfinance nga and nakita rin talaga namin yung epekto ng negatibong masyadong conventional and so much western form of financing here in the Philippines. Like for us po, ang ginagawa namin ngayon, we no longer extend loans in our microfinance program, but we actually do what we call profit and loss sharing. Kasi yung mga interest-based na loans na binibigay ng mga conventional banking approaches, kahit na may disaster, like nung pandemic po, Professor Walden, ang nangyari nung time na nag-lockdown, ang mga nano and micro enterprises, wala silang kinikita, pero patuloy pa rin na nagpapataw ng interest ang mga conventional banks. In our case, we did not do that kasi sabi namin, bakit sila yung magbe-bear ng burden nung interest na yon at ang nagmamay-ari ng kapital, yung mga mayayaman naman, hindi nga na-lockdown yung mga mayayaman. Magkalinya po ba tayo sa ganyang pananaw?
Oh, definitely, Vince. Parallel talaga yung thinking natin na kailangan talaga, lalo na pag may pandemya, luwagan talaga yung mga condition, para sa mga borrowers, no? At tulungan sila instead of gipitin sila, no? So, a good Secretary of Finance will be one who, will adopt policies, that will allow borrowers, allow debtors to be able to satisfy yung repayment nila, yung repayment commitments nila without killing them.
Yes.
So, and ito yung nangyayari talaga dito sa atin at sa marami pa, both in public and in private finance, talagang ang conditions that are imposed on borrowers are very, very tight. And instead of assisting them, it kills them, no? So, isa yan sa aspeto na gusto nating palitan, no?
Right.
We need to have a development-oriented finance policy, rather than, as you said, Vince, yung conventional finance policy.
Right.
Pero beyond that, napakahalaga na mapalitan yung naging patakaran ng Department of Finance ng indiscriminate o todo-todong pagbubukas ng ekonomiya natin over the last 4 decades, no? At
Correct.
hindi lang yung pagbubukas, no, ng ekonomiya natin na indiscriminate, no, kundi yung um, tinatawag natin na indiscriminate privatization, indiscriminate deregulation. Okay?
Right.
Kasama yan dito sa indefinite, indiscriminate liberalization. Nakawasak talaga yan sa ating ekonomiya, Vince. Kasi yung pagpasok ng todo-todo ng mga foreign goods, foreign manufacturing goods, no? Na yung tarifa sa kanila 1 to 4% lang, no? Nagsimula pa yan noong panahon ni Fidel Ramos, no? At pag ganyang kababa, dahil nga ito yung sinabi ng mga konserbatibong ekonomista, no? Ito yung sinabi ng Estados Unidos. Ito yung sinabi ng World Bank. Itong sinabi ng International Monetary Fund. Okay? Talagang papatayin yung industriya nyo. No?
Right.
At dalawang example lang, Vince. No? Alam mo, may masigla tayong manufacturing sector. Bago noong mga 1970s, no? At pag naalala mo, Vince, sorry, kasi bata ka pa. Hindi ka pa napanganak noon siguro. Alam mo yung shoe industry natin.
Yeah.
Nung lumalaki ako, yung brand ang tibay. And number one sa quality, even better than foreign imports, no? At pag tinignan mo noon, Marikina was seen as parang brand name yan. Gawa ba yan sa Marikina, no?
Right.
At we had a thriving shoe industry, no? At dahil we had a thriving shoe industry, we had skills of workers passed down, from one family to another. So mga thousands of families yan. Okay? Pangalawa, no? Because you had, a shoe industry is dependent on a number of raw materials like leather tanning, iba pa, no?
Yeah.
So yan talaga, there was a chain of industry supporting itong shoe industry. Paggagawa ng sapat. Ano nangyari? Okay? Nung binuksan ng todo-todo ang ating ekonomiya, okay? Pumasok, yung nagdagsahan talaga ang mga foreign imports.
Yeah.
It killed the Marikina shoe industry.
Right.
And that was an economic crime. Was an economic crime. Kasi hindi lang namatay yung industriya, nawala yung transmission of skills.
Right.
Atin. So, isang example lang yan.
Actually, sabi nga rin po ni Jet, and he's agreeing with you, no? Because this is what's happening right now with the current rice tarification law.
Yes. Ito na nga ang naging problema. Actually, dito sa rice tarification law, just para ma-familiarize lang natin yung ating mga viewers, no? Ang tagal nang tinutulak yan ng World Trade Organization. Ang tagal nang tinutulak yan sa atin ng Estados Unidos, no? At kasi sabi nila na itong quota raw, kasi hindi basta-basta makaka-import, pa-export rito. There is a quota, definite volume of metric tons that can come in. No? Alam mo, Vince, na natanggal yung mga quota in all of our agricultural goods, vegetables, potatoes, fruits, poultry, etc. The last stand we were making was rice. Okay?
Yeah.
And ito yung nagawa ni led by Senator Villar, no?
Mm.
And unfortunately agreed on by some senators that pretend to be progressive, no?
Mhm.
And yan natanggal noong 2019, no?
Yeah.
So what what we've seen, Vince, is just again to put it in context, no? Bago tayo pumasok sa World Trade Organization, okay? We had a agricultural trade surplus with, with the world, no? Ang ibig sabihin yon, we were exporting more than we were importing, no? So ito yung 1994, pasok tayo sa WTO 1995. Ngayon, okay, 2021. Okay? Kasi wala pa yung figures for 2022 first quarter. Yung ating trade balance is in the order of 7 billion, no? We are in deficit towards $7 billion. Okay? From a trade net trade exporting country, ito yung mga technical terms, we have become a gravely and massively agricultural trade importing country. So ito yung the realities, Vince, na yung pinili ng mga foreign powers sa atin for their own good, had very destructive effects. And unfortunately, maraming mga ekonomista natin, lalong-lalo yung mga trained at the University of the Philippines School of Economics, no? Which is a terrible institution in terms of brainwashing our youth, no? This and other institutions and the Department of Finance, of course, led in this process, no? So kaya lagi kong sinasabi, Vince, na of course maraming problema ang Pilipinas, no? Merong corruption, that's true, okay? But it's not just corruption. It is also the kind of economic policies, that have been adopted, no? Kagaya nga nitong todo-todong pagbubukas ng ating ekonomiya, no? So sa akin, Vince, unang-una, tumatakbo ako, of course, alam na ng mga kasama natin to, to prevent the Duterte Marcos axis of evil from staying in power. But equally important, I am running so that we can change yung mga economic policies which have harmed the country. So ito na nga yung examples na nabigay natin. At alam mo, Vince, dito sa pag-aaral, all the economic studies, including yung ones by conservative institutions like PIDS, yung Philippine Institute for Development Studies, lahat sila nagsasabi, the greatest impact in terms of creating poverty in the Philippines over the last few years and into the next few years in the rural area, is the Rice Tarification Act, no?
Right.
So those are the realities of Philippine agriculture.
Pero Professor, yung it's very unfortunate na ganun nga. At actually ngayon ang nakikita pa nga natin ay ang susunod na nai-import ay ano ba 'yon? Mga isda, 'di ba? Tapos so ironic dahil tayo ay archipelago. Pero the reality also is napaka-personality based din kasi ng ating politics ngayon dito sa Pilipinas. At meron po kayong binabanggit na new politics which is platform based. How would you define this at paano ba mag-shift, no, yung mga Pilipino from personality based to platform based?
Well, first of all, Vince, hindi kami yung nag-imbento ng platform-based politics. No?
Mhm.
Na ang ibig sabihin nito, merong programa, yung mga kandidato, at ang appeal nila sa voters is to vote for our platform and not for personalities. Okay? Do not vote for us because I am so and so, but because I represent an economic and political program. Yan ang sinatawag natin platform-based politics. Now, marami nang nagsabi niyan in the past, no? But we feel it as candidates with Leody de Guzman of Laban ng Masa na it's really time to be very, very serious about this. Kasi our country has been dragged down by personality politics, by the politics of money, by the politics that, obscures rather than illuminates the conditions of our underdevelopment as a country. No? So, kaya we are very uncompromising here. No? Na this is what we offer you. And sabi namin is that unless the politics of the Philippines changes, especially yung electoral politics natin, for voters to vote on program rather than by being bribed with money, okay, and by being, by personality politics, yung kondisyon ng ating bayan lala. It's we just have a few years to change this, okay? And are we as a people going to take the opportunity, or magpapaloko na naman tayo by people like Bongbong Marcos, okay, and a number of the other candidates, no? So yan yung bottom line namin ni Leody. Although makikita namin na sa English sinasabing uphill struggle yan, it's worth it because we believe kami sa ating mga kababayan na they will see the point of our running and support us.
Yeah. Professor, siyempre alam namin na kayo ay naging bahagi din ng Kongreso, no? At kayo po ay naging principal sponsor ng Reproductive Health Act of 2013. Naku, magsasampung taon na siya next year. As principal sponsor, Professor, are you happy with the implementation of this law?
Unfortunately, it has not really been implemented with the energy and the scope and the financial support with which it should have been. If you remember, after it, after it was approved in early 2013, immediately after that, nagkaroon ng mga challenges, constitutional challenges, no? That created an obstacle to its initial implementation. Okay, and you see what has happened now is talagang yung implementation was affected by the influence of a very important institution. Okay, I don't think we need to mention what that institution is. No, and ang daming mga there were so many obstacles, both of a legal as well as a material financial sort, that has not allowed the full implementation of the RH Act. No? And yet, it is one of the most important, I would say, revolutionary pieces of legislation in our recent history. No? And it's really a very pro-poor act. No? But then, ang nangyari rito, Vince, again, is that pinaghirapan namin na itulak ito, na panalo namin. Pero pagdating sa implementasyon, yun na naman, sumayad. No?
Yeah.
So, kailangan talaga natin reinvigorate yung implementation of the RH Act.
Yeah. Oo. Totoo nga, no? At laging ang sinasabi, Professor, na ang gaganda ng batas sa Pilipinas, pero ang problema talaga ay implementasyon nito. No? Halimbawa din, yung principal sponsor din kayo na CARPER, yung Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension Act. No? Ano po ba yung na-achieve ng CARPER, Professor?
Well, ito na nga, kasi nga yung original Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Act noong panahon ni Cory, no? Ang daming loopholes, okay? And after, I believe, after nearly 20 years, napaka-limited pa rin yung distribution, no? Of land, redistribution of land. So, ipinaglaban namin ito at napanalo namin yung CARPER Act, Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension Act of 2009, no? Para makompleto na yung mga aims ng original CARP, no? And unfortunately again, ang lakas ng resistance ng mga Panginoong may lupa, mga landlords, napakihina nung yung push ng agrarian reform, Department of Agrarian Reform. Naglabasan na rin yung maraming mga landlords that wanted to use, yung loopholes in CARPER as well as in the original Agrarian Reform Act to try to take back their land by intimidating and throwing out yung mga peasants na land reform beneficiaries. So, pagdating ng 2015, okay, the amount of undistributed land that should have been distributed already was 700,000 hectares. Ang dami. And to top it all, the most productive land in the country, 450,000 hectares. Ito yung mga, ito yung mga very, very fertile private lands. Okay? Had not been distributed. Okay? And sinubukan namin nila Congressman Bagilat, nila Congressman Erin Tanyada, magkakasama pa kami sa Kongreso noon. Pero by that time, napakahina na ng suporta for agrarian reform. And wala kami talaga nakuhang suporta during that time that was the last year of the Aquino administration. No? So we were like, tinatawag nga natin dito, Vince, voices in the wilderness. No?
Right.
So ito na nga, yung maganda yung batas, ang daming on the ground, ang daming obstacles. The powerful forces obstructed it, they intimidated, they threw out agrarian reform beneficiaries, no? And as a result, we have a very incomplete agrarian reform program. At isa pa, Vince, yung dapat talaga dyan sa agrarian reform, okay, hindi lang ibabahagi yung lupa, kundi meron kang support services, no? Na bibigyan mo ng tulong yung mga farmers para maging productive sila. Okay?
Correct.
And napakaliit yung mga support services na ibinibigay noon dito sa batas na ito, no? Na dapat kasi dapat malaki yan. But very limited yung binibigay ng landlord-dominated Congress. So parang naglagay ng mayroong mga kondisyon na naroon, or should have been there, no? There were certain conditions that were absent that could have promoted, or facilitated an effective land reform program. Kaya, alam mo, Vince, just a final point, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, they were able to have successful land reforms even in the teeth of landlord opposition. But this was because they had governments that put the welfare of mga mambubukid, in command. No? They might have had different reasons for prioritizing itong mga welfare ng ating mga kanilang mambubukid, but the results counted. They were able to create a very, very land redistribution program, and it had effects kasi lumaki nga yung kita ng ating ng kanilang farmers that created internal demand helped create an industrial sector kasi nga saan nanggagaling yung demanda para sa industry? Galing sa rural sector. So yan, may synergy. Now, where is Taiwan and Korea at this point? Well, there are, of course, other factors, but they have been very, very successful developing countries.
Yeah. Actually, hindi po yan, tama po kayo dyan, no? Kasi that's what we see on the ground. Ang SEDP po, our organization, actually supported around 36 agrarian reform beneficiary organizations with the Department of Agrarian Reform. At ang nakita nga namin, okay, nabigay nga yung lupa, pero yung management capacity ng mga magsasaka, kulang na kulang, yung kanilang support for equipment, no? At saka yung ding pong linking to the market kasi masyadong nakafocus on credit and masyadong nakafocus on production, kulang sa marketing side, no? That's what we've seen. Pero Professor, we've also known that you were the chairperson of the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs when you were in Congress. At ano naman po yung nagawa ninyo para sa mga sektor na to? Kasi marami po sa mga followers natin, Professor, ay mga OFWs po.
Well, when I was chair, talagang sineryoso ko itong committee chairmanship na ito. Okay? Because alam ko talaga na kailangan ng tulong yung ating mga sinatawag natin na bagong bayani. Okay? So, I was 5 years as chair from 2010 to 2015. Okay? At unang-una, we went on overseas missions to be able to determine yung condition nila. Okay? At alam mo, Vince, talaga, yung unang-unang mission na ginawa namin sa Saudi Arabia, we discovered such abuse. Yung estimate ko nga yung mga nasa shelter roon were about 20% had been abused sexually. Okay? And kasi nga, pag nagpadala ka ng mga, especially mga domestics, to a backward society like Saudi Arabia, that had just abolished slavery formally in the 1960s, but where, the treatment of subordinates, especially in the household, they're treated like slaves, no? At talagang daming abuse dyan, no? So, we came back, and the first report we filed was yung tinatawag natin na report, The Dark Kingdom, okay? Saudi Arabia, and our OFWs, no? And isang conclusion doon is that alam namin na maraming gustong pumunta sa Saudi, okay? Pero naman yung costs na naaabuso sila no, is tremendous, no?
Yeah.
And naging recommendation nga nung report na yon, let's ban the going to Saudi Arabia of our um, household service workers,
Aha.
yung
Yeah.
women
Oo.
especially.
Yeah.
So yan yung
In relation to that, Professor, I just actually visited a local government unit here, no, in Veruela. In relation to that, ito po yung nakalagay sa ano nila, no, sa isang hall nila. And if I can just zoom it in, yan ang sabi, abroad sa bawat pamilya program, di ba? So para bang nai-institutionalize na talaga na mag-abroad tayo, parang policy na mag-abroad tayo. Is that a good policy, sir?
no, it's very bad. You know, unang-una, Vince, talagang naintindihan ko bakit gustong mag-abroad ang marami. Okay? Kasi ito na nga yung sinabi namin. Okay? Nasira na yung manufacturing natin. Okay? Nasira na yung agriculture natin. So the two major job employing industries have been destroyed by policies that have been adopted over the last 4 decades under pressure from external powers, no? So hindi naman nasira ng todo-todo, pero ang dami natin mga farmers and manufacturing have been marginalized, no? They exist at the margins. Nahihirapan talaga sila. Kaya yung humahanap ng opportunities, kagaya lang lahat natin na umasenso, hindi nila nakikita sa bansa, pupunta sila abroad, no? And yan, na-institutionalize na nga yan, no? Kasi nga, the lack of opportunities in our country itself, no? So ito yung, so we understand that, no? And and while I was chair, talagang talagang nakita namin yan, no? At and we saw all the dangers of that. Hindi lang yung pang-aabuso sa Saudi Arabia, kundi yung nasa kasi alam mo naman, very unstable yung Middle East. They were caught in the war zones. And, part of the time that I was an OFW, some of the time I spent trying to extricate ang ating mga OFWs from civil war situations, kagaya sa Syria. No? And to be frank naman, and to be honest and to be fair, some of our officials in the Department of Foreign Affairs at Dole that were on the ground were very concerned about the welfare of our OFWs. But the larger point I'm making is that, we can extend some protection if we have a very serious government and hindi lang yung style ni President Duterte na for show. But the support we can extend is limited. Kasi nga, once they're out there, they're at the mercy, of their overseas employers. So the point, Vince, is we have a problem. At this point in time, we must extend all the help we can get, including forcing countries like Saudi Arabia to pay a minimum wage, of a certain amount to our workers. Okay, but the essential solution lies here within. We have to make the necessary reforms to reinvigorate our economy. And just one last point, Vince, so bad has been yung treatment of our workers abroad that a lot of the time I was OFW chair. Parang fireman ako eh. May manatawag na rape ang aking pinsan doon, maaari bang gawin nyo ito? Meron sa Mississippi, mga hotel workers na naloko sila ng employment agency sa US.
Mm.
Paano ba, Congressman, kami makakatakas dito sa virtual imprisonment namin sa Mississippi?
Mhm.
Tatawag sa opisina ko yung mga tigas pamilya ng Saudi. Ah,
Mhm.
alam ho nyo, Congressman, patay na yung asawa ko. Pero hindi nila pinapalabas sa morgue at
Mm.
dadalhin yung labi rito kasi raw walang exit visa yung mama.
Mm.
So this is what they face. How can a dead man get an exit visa? Pero the
Right.
Saudi bureaucracy, has this rule,
Mm.
inflexible rule na you can't get out if you're dead if you don't have an exit visa.
Yeah.
So what I'm just trying to say here, Vince, is we tried our best to respond to all of this. Okay,
Mm.
but we cannot have, an supportive OFW structure that is just very reactive. Okay,
Mhm.
ngayon, of course, there's now a Department of Overseas Workers Affairs that has been passed,
Mm.
and I hope that it will be able to address these problems in a good way
Mm.
instead of just being another bureaucracy that is run for the benefit of the bureaucracy and not run for the benefit
For the
of
people.
the people.
Oo, ako agree po ako diyan ano, Professor. And of course, you're also the principal sponsor ng Human Rights Victims Reparation and Recognition Act of 2013. Ang tanong ko po dito ay nabigay na po ba yung pera para sa mga biktima? Magkano at kanino galing yung perang 'yon?
Well, unang-una, Vince, the thing that I would like to mention with regard to yung Reproductive Health Act, yung Carper Extension Law, yung Human Rights Victims Compensation Act, um, I would like to stress, those were cooperative efforts. Principal
Mhm.
sponsor nga ako, pero there were other principal sponsors. And I would
Yeah.
just like to mention people like Congressman Edsel Lagman, for
Aha.
instance, and people who work for it, like Senator Risa Hontiveros, noong kongresista pa siya. At,
Mm.
so sila, Congressman Erin Tanyada, no? So I would just like, first of all, to stress that. Kasi talagang cooperative effort yan. We were a team that pushed this, no?
Mhm.
Pangalawa, dun sa question mo, we had a good board that investigated. This was under the chairpersonship of General Linda Sarmiento, no?
Mhm.
Who is very excellent police officer, very fair, and
Mhm.
very, very systematic, no? At alam mo, there were about, if I'm not wrong now, there were about 70,000 applications filed for compensation, no? And of that, after thorough review, there were
Mhm.
about 11,000. Again, my figures, alam mo, tumatanda tayo rito, Vince, that 11,000 were seen as valid, no?
Mhm.
And therefore, the money that was allocated for that was in fact distributed, no, to people according to yung merong scorecard yan eh. Pag namatay
Mhm.
ka, itong papunta sa family. Pag na-torture ka, ito. Pag sinunog yung bahay mo, ito. No? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there were about 4 or 5 indices. And they did a good job. And I should also say, Vince, na talaga nanlakas ng naging tulong ni Congressman Chito Gascon. I mean,
Ah,
Chairman Chito Gascon
ah,
of
mhm.
Human Rights
Oh,
Commission. No, and it's so bad that he's passed away. No,
yeah.
kasi talagang human rights defender siya. No,
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
and of course people like former Commissioner Eta Rosales. No, malakas lahat ng contribution nila. But
Oo.
the money, where did so ang sense ko is that most of that money has
Mhm.
been distributed, although probably there's still some that still there, but I would say that's not much, no?
Mhm.
But saan nanggaling yan? Alam mo kasi,
Mhm.
Vince, yung about uh, 20 years ago,
Mhm.
the Swiss government uh, 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 confiscated yung mga money below that the Marcoses had placed in various institutions, charities raw in Switzerland, no? So kasi ang dami nang naging complaints all over the world na Switzerland was, the haven for dictators' money. Talagang na, ang lakas ng pressure. It forced the Swiss government to confiscate that money. When it was confiscated, I think it was around $365 million. No? And by the time 2013 came along, it had already begun to be $650 million. Okay, and siyempre, the Swiss government took an interest na hindi yun pupunta sa bulsa ng mga politiko. No? Kaya lagi nilang chine-check ngayon. Every congressional hearing, nandun sila. No? At ang alam ko is that they also kept very close contact with the board, the compensation board. No? So, doon nang galing yan. No? But I think that yung 650 million na yon, okay, that is just a small amount of what the Marcoses have brought out of the country.
Yeah.
And
Oo,
that has
kasi
been estimated at $5 to $10 billion. Ang laki niyan. Where
right.
is that money? Where is that money right now? And I'm pretty sure it is funding part of Bongbong's campaign.
Yeah, actually dun nga ako gustong magtanong kasi marami yung mga disinformation na nangyayari ngayon, no? Parang they were explaining nga na parang yung daw kayamanan ng mga Marcos is coming from the Taliano gold and all that. At hindi daw sila nagnakaw dahil wala namang nakakulong na Marcos. So how do we answer this very very actually basic questions, no, from the masses? Na ako mismo, professor, talaga hirap ako na mag-explain sa kanila.
Well, pag tinignan naman natin yung mga legal rulings, about yung Marcoses' wealth, the Marcoses have lost a number of very major legal rulings, okay? And there have been even Supreme Court decisions that said, that they had salted expropriated money and sent it out of the country. And if yung money that was turned over by the Swiss government, sinabi nga ng Supreme Court that it is justifiable to bring this, to compensate the victims of martial law for this, because this was money, that had been taken by the Marcoses. So the legal evidence, the rulings, there probably are about 5 or 6 major rulings that explicitly says that Marcos money went out of the country. They brought their money out of the country. Okay, and that's there. That's in the legal record at this point. Okay, so baka nandyan yan, Vince. Ngayon, ba't walang nakakulong na Marcos? Well, that's already, where you have the legal system in concrete situations favoring the people with money. Kasi alam mo naman, pag may pera ka dito sa Pilipinas, as long as you're willing to spend money, you can delay, you can obstruct the legal process from reaching its final conclusion, maybe until after you die. Okay?
Yeah.
Kaya yan, no? Tingnan mo na lang yung nangyayari dun sa COMELEC, no? Napakalakas naman nung kaso against Marcos na talagang he evaded taxes, no?
Right.
He evaded taxes, paying taxes. He was convicted for this. He should be disqualified right off, but until now, he's
Mm.
not been disqualified. He's still running.
Right.
Um, and the recent COMELEC decision that would say that it would include him,
Mm.
not kick him out as a candidate. Is that was recently adopted, and sinabi na that the disqualification um, judgment is still about to come. Okay,
Mm.
and I'm just really worried at this point in time that they will allow a convicted tax evader, who
For office.
is disqualified, that they will allow him to run for office. And I think that is going to be such blow
Aha.
to yung legal system natin.
Right, oo. And yung isa din po sa mga ano 'no, isa din sa mga disinformation campaigns that we've seen really is ano daw golden age nga during the Marcos time because there were many infrastructures built during his time. Pero syempre alam po natin na ito ay mga inutang 'no, kaya tayo nagkanda baon-baon sa utang. So ano po yung stand nyo in terms of this kind of growth na sa utang nanggagaling?
Well, ito na nga yung, yung problema natin. And alam mo yung recent show ni Boy Abunda na tinanong si Marcos tungkol sa mga human rights violations during his father's time, and also his stand on foreign debt, no? Well, by the time Marcos left office, we were $26 billion in debt, 25 to $26 billion in debt. No? And and a lot of that debt, had been, taken to benefit Marcos's friends. A lot of it was wasted in different projects. Okay, a lot of it never really went down to development. So kanyan, that has been well documented, no? And that all of that debt, a lot of that was wasted, consumed, or really pilfered into the hands of Marcos's cronies. Now, the thing is, we spent a long time, $26 billion. We spent a long time, decades, paying that off, and in the estimate of some experts, we're still paying for it. No? Kasi nga, the debt service and the rates of interest increase year by year. Okay, so that after a while, talagang it just keeps being rolled over. No,
Yeah.
so right now, our country is more than $100 billion external debt. Okay, and it's clear as day, yung $26 billion that Marcos of the Marcos debt really contributed a lot to really putting us very much down in the hole. No, and this is the situation that we have faced. No, and alam mo, in order to pay off that debt, during the succeeding years, we were forced by the creditors to pass yung tinatawag nating Automatic Appropriations Act. That says, that the first cut in the budget is debt service. Okay, and what has that come to? That has come to, I think, an average of 20% of the budget every year. At some years, like during the period of Gloria, it came to as high as around 40% of the budget. No?
Right.
So so my if you can just see that, no, Unang-una, constitutional violation yan. Kasi sabi ng Constitution, the biggest cut in the budget should go to education. So, our legislators violated the constitutional provision by paying the debt as having the first cut in the budget. Secondly, ano nangyari? Dahil nga sa napakaliit ng budget natin at tatanggalin mo pa ng 20 to 40%, wala na. What you're left with is paying personnel expenditures. Okay? Maintenance, capital expenditures. Alam mo naman, Vince, as an economist, you know that the government in any country is the biggest investor. And if you cripple the ability of the government to invest, you cripple the whole economy.
Right.
Halos wala. For a long time, yung capital expenditures natin up to the 2000s and beyond was very, very low. No? And that was a reason, Vince, makukuha naman ito. I don't think, there's any dispute here na isa ito sa dahilan na tayong naging sick man of Asia. Noong panahon ni Cory, ni Erap, ni Ramos, tayong naging sick man ng Asia. Kasi nga, wala tayong maibigay sa capital investment, capital expenditures. No? At pinayagan lahat nito. What really upsets me is pinayagan lahat nito mga ating mga politicians. Sinuportahan ng mga ating economists, the so-called great economists of the UP School of Economics. Okay, and so now we are in a situation where things have gotten worse. $100 billion in debt. I mean, and it's gonna get worse.
Yeah,
And Duterte
with this pandemic, no, na laging ang laki-laki ng mga inuutang natin. So, I take it, Professor, that you're for repealing, no, the automatic appropriation for paying our debts. Pero as may nabanggit din po kayo na wealth tax, that you wanted to impose a wealth tax on the top 250 richest families in the Philippines. Hindi kaya tayo wewelgahin ng mga richest families na yan? And bakit wealth tax instead of income tax or consumption tax?
Well, unang-una, wewelgahin ba tayo? Of course, that goes without saying. Kaya, but that's the truth. Okay? If Yodi and I go through with the wealth tax, talagang marami talagang sa mga billionaires will oppose this. No? Let's just put it that way. Okay? And alam naman natin, since economic issues are at the gut of things, if you're very serious about this, Yodi and I could be subjected to all sorts of things. Huwag na natin sabihin kung anong things like those. Kasi alam naman natin, our ruling elite is very fond of extra-legal means of opposing. No? Pangalawa, yung consumption tax, alam naman natin, Vince, na gaya ng consumption tax natin ngayon, yung excise taxes, no? Yung VAT. Talagang ang impact niyan is dun sa lower classes and the middle class. Okay, they're the ones who have to pay for the fact that the rich are able to avoid paying taxes, no? Or income taxes. Okay, and wealth tax because alam naman natin that the rich are able to diversify their wealth not only into income but into property, into stocks and everything else, no? So to pag income tax lang ang sasabihin natin, talagang I think that we will only be taxing a small part of their wealth. Okay? Yeah. So we need to make it. Sabi nga, this is not galing sa amin ito. Vince, alam mo, galing ito from the economist, si Thomas Piketty, who is the world's leading expert on tax and inequality. No?
Mm.
So, ang sense namin is that, okay, we have a wealth tax, and yung estimate namin is if we have a wealth tax of 3%
Uh-huh.
on on the richest 250 to 300 families, we can in fact generate 1 million. I
Oo.
mean a trillion. No, no, a trillion pesos. No,
Yes.
so ang point ko lang dyan, Vince, is responsible naman yung policies namin. Kasi
Mm.
um, you cannot expand social welfare, social expenditures, no, without having a guaranteed source of revenue. Okay, and you have to get that revenue from somewhere. And the worst thing you can do is to get it by borrowing and borrowing and borrowing more loans.
Yeah.
So let's let's get it from resources, that have to be tapped, because it is just to tap them,
Mm.
and use this for transfer payments from the very rich to the marginalized sectors of our population. So
Oo.
ito yung tinatawag natin na social obligations of the powerful and the rich to the rest of society.
Oo. Actually, ang ako nga, yung 3% nga medyo ano pa yan, no, mababa kasi ang Oxfam sabi niya dapat daw 90%. Pero Professor, I also want to know your stand kasi hindi niyo po kami po ni Edwin yung nag-interview sa inyo dati. We're actually part of the LGBTQI plus family or community, no? Ano po ba ang stand niyo for same-sex marriage or civil union?
Okay. Yes. Yung stand namin is, very, very clear, no?
Mhm.
That we want same-sex marriage to be recognized. Hindi lang
Wow.
civil union, okay?
Aha.
It is same-sex marriage, okay? And the reason for this is, alam mo, Vince, marriage started out as a mechanism to mark possession of the woman, okay?
Mhm.
It evolved, and it evolved to signify or to celebrate the love of a man for a woman. Okay, so and then it further evolved now. Okay, and this is recognized in so many countries that it is now, an institution to celebrate, the not only the love between a man and a woman, but between a woman and a woman, or and a man for a man.
Mhm,
So
mhm, mhm.
marriage must evolve to meet evolving values of societies. So that's why we're very strong. That let's not stay in the Middle Ages. No, we want same-sex marriage to be recognized. Okay, and we are very firm
Ah,
on this at this point. Now, when it comes to divorce,
mhm.
well, I think we're the last country on earth, or
Yeah.
maybe the last two, including the Vatican, okay,
Mhm.
to uh, oppose divorce. But alam mo, yung social costs talaga nito of divorce is very high. I mean, you have so many, unhappy families, broken families, because of the fact, that people are staying together who can't stand one another anymore. Okay.
Mm.
And children and everybody else gets affected by this. And of course, other cultures, other religions recognize the fact that um, initial choices for partners, a lot of it can be wrong, no?
Yeah.
um, and therefore you must be able to get out of unions that that you feel, were contracted no longer, no longer fulfills the reasons for they were contracted. No? So this is why divorce has become a universal institution,
Mm.
except for a place like the Philippines, um, because of this the crazy, awful, stupid opposition of the Catholic hierarchy. No,
Mm.
there are bishops here, that are, would probably defy Pope Francis if he went into, pushing for for divorce. No, at alam naman natin that if Pope Francis would like, Pope Francis probably wants to push divorce. It's
Mm.
just that there are all these dinosaurs that would that would eat him up if he did that. No, so and then was there another issue you wanted to raise, Vince?
No, I think that's the last one actually, Professor, no? At nako, napaka-enlightening para akong nag-run through ng maraming lessons that we should learn and what we should do, no? To make our country become progressive. Professor Walden, with your campaign, can you inform us how do we volunteer sa mga gustong mag-volunteer and how do we get involved?
Yes, we now have um, um, we now have various social media accounts, no, that we will be sharing with you. In fact, the our team has already set up and floated last Tuesday and is popularizing the eating social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And we are going to be sharing that with you as well as so many other media. No,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not only money that we need. Even more important, we need volunteers. Okay, we need people who believe in what we're fighting for and who are willing to work 24/7 to make this campaign win. And the interesting thing, Vince, is that we now have those people. They are
Mm-hmm.
increasing in our ranks. And, ang sense ko is that, that's the kind of spirit, energy that we need. So it's not just money. Money is important, but even more important is volunteers. And we'll get them because this is the campaign and the
Mm-hmm.
team, yung Lodi Walden team. This is
Mm-hmm.
what they've been waiting for.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, maraming salamat, Professor, for gracing our show, no? And hopefully sa campaign period, you would come back again to explain more about your platform. And yun, all-out campaign na po tayo. So
Of course,
maraming salamat po. Any last words for our viewers?
Vince, no, I mean, I appreciate your having provided me this opportunity to speak. And I would just like to say two things that I have a very, very good and strong team behind me. And I think if I appear and answer the things, it's because they're all there behind me, supporting me. And of
Mhm.
course, and next time we can go into the other controversial issues like decriminalizing abortion. I think we missed that. But
Yeah.
this is a campaign that is not afraid to take on the big issues. So
Uh-huh.
thank you very much again, Vince.
Yes, opo, and we'll allot another schedule for that, no? Yung mas mga controversial na talaga. And we will also be asking more hard-hitting questions next time.
Yeah, yeah,
Ayun.
sure. Maybe Vince, you can ask me about mandatory military service.
Right. Oo. So, yan po yung mga itatanong natin next time, Professor. So, maraming salamat po ulit for joining us and we hope to see you again. Thank you po.
Sige, salamat, Vince. Maraming salamat.
Ayan. Ayan, so nakita po natin at may interview na naman na tayo nakapanayam natin ang isa sa mga tumatakbo bilang Vice President sa ating bansa at sana ay mas naliwanagan kayo at mas nakilala sila kasi ang isa sa mga gusto talaga naming mangyari ay mas makilala natin ang mga pinagpipilian natin kasi sa totoo lang talaga nag-a-apply ang lahat ng mga tumatakbong yan ng trabaho sa ating lahat. So let's take this opportunity na kilalanin sila, kilatisin sila. And yun, pagsabak po talaga ng campaign period ay iimbit pa tayo ng marami pa para mas makita natin kung sino talaga ang karapat-dapat na iboboto natin. Pero ako alam niyo na may clue kung sino ang ating mga iboboto. So maraming salamat po sa inyong pagsubaybay sa ating show at ako po ang inyong financial guro, si Sir Vince, nagsasabing ang pagyaman na pag-aaralan at napagtutulungan.